Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our Golden 20s podcast. My name is Sadie, and I'm joined by my co-host, Tegan.
Hey.
And today we're talking all about working in social media. And I feel so excited for this episode because I think social media is such a new industry and kind of the hot, job to have right now. And I think it'll only continue to become more like desirable and popular. And we'll start by kind of telling you what we do with our jobs currently and like why we want to talk about this. But for me, I'm just like, I see so much TikTok content that's like, this is how you work in social media. And I'm always like, there's so many other ways to get into social media, or like so many other facets to this industry and like these roles where we need a whole podcast episode to cover all of the basics.
Yeah.
So that is what we are doing today.
Yeah. Well, and it changes so rapidly. Like we haven't been working that long. So I remember like getting my degree in film. It was still like, well, what are you going to do with a film degree? Whereas now it's like one of my coworkers was like, social media, like it's all about video now, video. So they're like, so you guys are going to be set for work. And it's like, okay, so that changed in 10 years, but that's like, who knows, maybe in 10 years, video's dead. Like it's such a rapidly changing industry.
Yeah, totally. Like even I graduated, I think 6 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I think right when I started was when social media started becoming like a thing, like when companies started hiring like social media roles, not just marketing roles. And even throughout my career, I've kind of felt like I'm on the forefront of like what these roles and titles actually are and like knowing what to apply to and what's relevant to me and what I'm actually looking for, because I really think companies are still figuring it out. I feel like now they have it down, and I definitely included like as we go through some of the different avenues you can go, like what some of those common job titles are. But I really think like my first job, it was like, I want to get into social media, but like I don't even know how to do that. And companies were like, we know we need somebody, but we don't know if it's like a whole role or if just like it's somebody's like part-time gig, like on top of their day-to-day responsibilities on the marketing team or whatever it was. So it has been all of this is to say it has been very like fast and continues to change. And now we have like influencers and we have, that whole side of the social media industry we'll talk about in this episode as well. So it's like this kind of, it feels like just became a thing overnight almost, you know what I mean? So it is fast, but that's kind of one of the reasons I love it so much.
Yeah.
Never a dull day.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So Tag, do you want to maybe start by telling everybody what you do in your job, how social media kind of fits into your job, or like even maybe a little bit of like how you got to where you're at? I think that will be helpful background for everyone to know where we're coming from.
Yeah, for sure. So my current title is Project Manager and Content Specialist. And I work at an agency and we specialize in film and television, but we do work with clients who don't fit into that category, especially because during the pandemic, a lot of film and television like halted production. So we've been like kind of shifting away from that, but still have some clients that are in there. And basically the way I got to where I am is, like I said, I got a bachelor's degree with a major in film from a university. And then I did a post-grad degree in advanced filmmaking from a college. And I like fast tracked my program. So I got both my degree and my certificate in 4.5 years instead of 6. And which is good because I was just like over school by the time that happened. And I did an internship to finish off my certificate, which is what brought me to the city of Toronto. I was editing wedding videos. And then I was hired by an agency who was working with like Fortune 500 companies like McDonald's and Chevrolet and that kind of stuff to do assistant editing, which then led me to my current agency I work at. I started as an assistant editor, worked my way up to an editor, and then eventually what I am now, like a project manager and content specialist, which means not only am I running the shoots and doing all the editing, but I'm also doing all of the project management, all the pre-production of everything. And it's not just video, it's all content that basically you see on social, paid ads. I think that's it. I haven't done anything like some people on my team do, like bus stop ads and like that kind of thing, but I haven't I'm mainly social focused.
Digital media.
Yeah. That I think has been my journey. I feel like I've missed a bunch of stuff. We do have like an episode that we've done that's like our whole like details of our lives. So if that interests you, definitely listen to that. But yeah, what about you, Sadie?
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think I'm opposite of you in a lot of ways that we'll like kind of talk through in this episode more. But I went to school for fashion business management and literally didn't know what it was going to lead me to. But I ended up really liking marketing through my program and applied to just like marketing assistant, marketing coordinator roles when I graduated. And then a big part of marketing, like I said, kind of 6 years ago, was social media. So I then moved from a marketing specific role. So I went from like a marketing assistant at one company to a brand coordinator at another company, which is essentially the same thing, up to an assistant marketing manager. And then I was actually overseeing a lot of other marketing channels. So like if it was transit ads or if it was newspaper ads, flyers, website banners, emails, and social media, like I was just kind of like general marketing, overseeing all of it. And then 2 years ago, I moved companies again, and I went for a social specific role. But unlike Tegan, I am focused on the media side of things. So I'm not necessarily creating content. I'm not a video editor. I'm not a graphic designer. However, as we're going to get to in this episode, as a social media specialist, you often need a lot of those skills, and it's kind of like a jack of all trades. So like I've done a little bit of copywriting, but in my last job when I was just specifically a social media specialist, I was really focused on paid ads as well. So also not really the content planning side or anything like that. It was literally just setting up ads within Facebook Ads Manager, Pinterest Ads Manager. I even got into like LinkedIn ads for recruitment and stuff like that. So that's kind of my background. Now I'm at a different company again, and I'm what is my title? Performance marketing manager. So I continue to execute paid social ads on the day-to-day, but I oversee all of our other digital channels, such as we have a contractor who does all of our Google ads, so that's search, shopping ads, YouTube, and display ads. So they actually execute it, but I like oversee it. And then also affiliates and like a whole bunch of other digital marketing channels fall under me, but I actually manage and execute the day-to-day of social media and then outsource the rest. So we're really going to focus today on the social media stuff, not the Google side and, all the other media, but that's kind of where I'm at and how I got to where I'm at. I also have done a lot of freelancing. Like social media is really my thing. And I've done a lot on the freelancing side for smaller businesses that don't have, huge paid media budgets. So I did a lot of more organic content, and we'll talk more about what that means in a minute. But that's essentially, just your everyday posting on the Instagram feed and whatever else. So I do also have, and I do that for the podcast now. So it's like, creating content calendars, scheduling content, and like that side of things. So definitely been all over the place. And that's why I'm like, okay, I want to sit down and talk about all the different ways you can get into social media, because these TikToks don't do it justice that I'm seeing. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like maybe where we'll start is also talking about how social media is not industry like it's not really an industry. I think, Tag, you brought up a great point where your clients are in entertainment. I've always worked in-house, not in an agency, which is another big difference in our career paths. So it's not industry specific. There's so many different ways to get into social media. You might work in the car industry. You might work in like grocery. You might work in, actual retail like I do. You might work on the client side. You might work on the agency side. Like there's so many ways to get into it. So one other thing I wanted to say just from the get-go, keeping that in mind, is that I think social media is something really easy to get into. I don't think there's really like social media programs yet. You know what I mean? Like there might be social media courses you can take and whatnot to learn. But I think what was the most helpful in me and my career was just getting a basic understanding of marketing and how, marketing goals, support a company's goals or like marketing objectives and all of that stuff. And social media is just really a marketing channel that companies use to like reach customers and like push their product, services, or whatever it is. So something to keep in mind as well, because like I said, I don't think there's like social media like college or university programs just yet. I think they all fall kind of under marketing.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm thinking the best way to go through this, I thought of like 4 key areas of social media, and we've already hinted at a few of them and like briefly discussed them, but then I'll kind of just like overview what those 4 main areas are, and then we can dive deeper into each one. So the first one is what I said I really specialize in, and that's the paid media side of it. And that's, companies have marketing budgets, and then a certain amount of it goes on to like social media ads. And as a consumer, you're probably familiar with those as, you're scrolling through your own Instagram feed or your Facebook feed, Pinterest, whatever social channel you're on, even TikTok now. And it's all of those sponsored ads. So that is the paid media side. But then there's also the organic media side. And organic is often interchangeable with social media management. And this is just free content for brands to post. I really view it now as like a brand channel, like an owned brand channel where like you're just posting content. It's really helping to like give your brand an identity of some sort, and it's a way to interact with your customers if it's through DMs and your customer service, but there's not really any specific goal or like budget or anything associated to it. So this is really, planning content calendars, and we'll get into more of that there, but it's all organic posts that you see on your feed and like Instagram page for a brand. Yeah. So not the ads.
And this is like probably what people think of when they think of like social media or like digital marketing for a brand. It's probably like, the pictures on a company's Instagram, that kind of thing.
Right. Definitely. So then that takes us to our third bucket, which is content creation. And there's so much in here that we will get to in a minute, but I feel like, Tag, this is where historically kind of your video editing fell into, is actually producing the content that is then uploaded to brands' Instagram pages and maybe used in our paid ads as well. It could be copywriting, it's really just like the actual content creation of the behind the scenes of how that image or video comes to be. And there's a few new and emerging things within content creation that we'll definitely talk about when we get there. But the last main bucket is influencer marketing and influencers in general. If it's you becoming an influencer, if it's you working on the brand side with influencers. But I think that's a whole other bucket within social media jobs right now. So you got paid media, social media management / organic, content creation, and influencers. And we'll dive deeper into what each of these means. Another thing I wanted to say too, just like starting, is I also think it's really essential, regardless of which of these buckets you want to go into. Like I said, really having like a marketing basics or like understanding like marketing foundations will really help you regardless of what area of these you go into. And also knowing, common KPIs and how to measure these KPIs and how you can use social media as a whole to like tie into a company's goals and helping them achieve their goals and like marketing objectives. So something to keep in mind. I do think there is roles that really specialize in this and just like really focusing on like the social media strategy side of things and the analytics. And that I didn't really like include as like a huge bucket because I don't think it's like a huge thing right now, maybe a little bit, but more so on like the freelancing side. Like you'll hear of like, I'm a consultant or like social media consultant, or I'm a social media strategist at agencies. And I think that's really what they focus on, is just like planning the strategy to help achieve certain KPIs and whatnot. So one other thing to throw out there, but I think the first area really social media specific is that I wanted to talk about is the paid media, which I hold very near and dear to my heart. And obviously you still need to have, understand how it supports the company, understand how to measure success and the KPIs and stuff. But when we say paid media, and I already talked about this a little bit, is really understanding the media buying side of things and understanding ads manager execution. So this is, you're in Facebook ads manager, you're in Pinterest ads manager, you're understanding, the marketing goal for like this product launch is to create brand awareness, or it's like Black Friday, so we really need to push like sales and conversion, push traffic to our website. Like these are these overarching marketing objectives that you understand, and then you kind of execute campaigns within whichever social media channel that you're working in to drive those results. So on the media side of things, we're not necessarily focused on what the content looks like, what the ad looks like. We're more so focused on how much budget should we run? How do we optimize this media? What do we want it to drive? Who is the audience that we should be targeting to drive those results? And then maybe some like ad format type stuff. So like a single image ad versus a carousel ad. But we don't really care too much about what the actual image or carousel looks like. So if you're interested in this, I think this is a huge, huge growth opportunity for a lot of companies right now.
Yeah.
I think if you're wanting to get into paid media, I don't think a lot of people have that skill set yet. Like obviously we're all along this ride together, but right now it's often in agencies that you get this experience, in like media agencies, rather than like in-house for a company. But the role titles here are often social media specialist or maybe a paid media specialist, sometimes social media coordinator, but I really feel like it's specialist. I've also seen like a campaign manager title at an agency, but this is often always relating to like the paid side of things. And I think if you're not wanting to set up ads, there's also a whole other side of the social media industry, which is actually working for these tech companies such as Facebook / Meta, Google, Pinterest, TikTok. Like I'm setting up ads, but I'm always, talking to my Facebook reps, not really my Facebook reps, but my Pinterest reps, my TikTok reps, so there's somebody on the other side at these companies who understands their channel inside and out on the advertising side and can, help companies meet their goals on their that channel specifically. So I feel like this is also something not many people talk about when you talk about social media, because it now becomes more like tech company, but I think it is a whole other side to the social media, especially paid media side, that I wanted to bring up. The next area is, like we said, the organic content. So it's not the sponsored posts. It's pretty much everything else that you're seeing in your feeds as you're scrolling through your own personal social media feeds. So this might be, the Body Shop posts like a reel, or the Body Shop posts just like an image, or whatever it is. Sometimes it's like UGC or whatever, maybe brand photo shoots, whatever it is. But it's just content that they're posting. And like I said, it's often to like really help them connect with their community, build community, interact with people, versus driving a specific marketing objective like I was talking about. Oh my gosh, I'm like geeking out right now, but I hope people are following and finding this interesting. But, we can't optimize this content. We can't target it to a specific audience like we can the paid stuff. There's no budget behind it. Like it's really just uploaded to do its thing and like be in the space essentially. So the main parts of this role is often planning content calendars or editorial calendars. And, it's really breaking down on Monday, we're going to post this. And then you have the graphic, if it's video, if it's static, you write the copy, you maybe research your hashtags, and then you schedule it using some sort of like social media scheduling tool. And then from there, it's actually posting it. And then oftentimes community management falls under this role as well. So like responding to comments on your post, responding to DMs, helping customers if there's customer, because this is the one thing with social media that's so often overlooked is how, like, as a consumer, if you have a problem with a company, you're probably going to their social media channels to interact with them, since it is really that two-way communication. So I think a big piece of the organic side often is community management and customer service and helping customers with that two-way communication. I think there is still, though, like a reporting aspect to this role. However, you're probably reporting out on different KPIs than you are on paid media. So organic performance, you may be measuring how many people you reached, how many impressions that post saw, what the engagement rate was, but you probably can't measure sales like you can if you're working for like a retail company, like you can from your paid media. So totally different, but kind of the same. And I hope people are understanding. I think, like you said, Tag, this is probably what people maybe first think of when they think of working in social media. And I think it is like a natural progression to start here and then maybe start taking on like paid opportunities and whatnot, even if it's as simple as like boosting your post every now and then in the organic space, just to get like a few more eyeballs on it.
Yeah.
And you can start to like dabble with paid that way.
Yeah. And this is like, a lot of people just do this for their own personal brand. Like if you're planning your Insta layout and I'm going to post this on that day and it's the first day of fall, so I want to post a fall thing. Like people do this for themselves every day.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. Tag, do you want to maybe take us into content creation?
Yeah, so this is basically when you are planning the organic content or planning your ads, you need the actual content itself. And that is created by a person, hopefully not like an AI or something. And so this is all the graphic design, all the photography, all of the video content, all of the copywriting, which is just the words. And yeah, this could be a whole team. Like oftentimes this can be an agency that's hired, or it's like one content creator in-house, or more and more I've seen companies hiring like a TikTok content creator or like that kind of thing. And so this is obviously kind of like a very large role, and it kind of depends on the company. Some companies are more like Instagram focused, whereas some are more TikTok focused. So then the content creator is going to look different depending on where you're posting and how that should look. And yeah, sometimes it's one person who's, doing all the photography and doing all of the videography and all the editing, or sometimes, like I said, in my agency, I started just as a video editor. So I wasn't filming any of the content. I was only doing the editing. And so that depends on how large the company is, or if you're at an agency, that kind of thing.
Totally.
And like I said, it's like changing rapidly. Like when I started, only like very big brands were looking for video content, whereas nowadays I feel like even little brands need video content because you need to be posting reels on Instagram and that kind of thing. So it's like maybe you start as a graphic designer and now you're leaning more into video. And yeah, I also feel like when I started in the industry, you could just be one thing. Like I could just be a video editor. Whereas nowadays, I think you will have a very hard time finding a job if all you do is one specific thing. Like I find, you need to be a video specialist and graphic designer all in one. So you kind of have to always be learning and trying new things. So it's like now I have to be a Photoshop expert and I have to be good at like animating videos. I can't just shoot real people. It's got to be all kinds of stuff. And now, especially, it's like you have to know how to edit videos on non-linear editing software like Final Cut Pro or Premiere. But then you also have to know how to edit photos. So inside like the TikTok app or the Instagram app, if that's what the client wants. So it's like changing very rapidly. Which is exciting, especially if you like work where you're like constantly evolving and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, totally. I think something that's kind of new here is also this whole idea of UGC, which stands for user generated content. In the past, brands would, for instance, if I posted a Sephora haul, maybe Sephora is a bad example. Like I bought something from Aritzia and then I uploaded on Instagram, tagged Aritzia. They might reach out to me, be like, hey, can we repost this on our channel? That was historically what UGC was, but I've been seeing so much lately about UGC, like content creation, brands actually paying people for it. And essentially what that looks like, and I think this is becoming new, or not new, sorry, this is growing really fast. And it's a great way for people who are super creative and really like creating content, but maybe don't have this huge Instagram following or TikTok following to work with brands in the influencer side of things. I think brands are starting to reach out to these content creators just to generate content rather than doing branded shoots themselves. So especially TikTok, like, you have creator videos now rather than companies doing their own video shoots or photo shoots even. So I think this is a really unique way to get into the space and like do this, but like I said, without being a full-on influencer and like having a whole bunch of followers and stuff. And like if you're really passionate about creating content, like maybe you can reach out to brands, to offer services like this, to be like, I don't need to post these pictures on my account like as if an influencer would, but I'm just happy to like take photos and you can outsource the content creation to me. And I think too, this is also a great like freelance role as well. So wanted to call that out. And I've seen people on TikTok be like, I make this much in content creation and I only have 300 followers. This is how I do it. And that's typically what the situation is where they're being paid to create content, not to necessarily create it and post it. So that kind of takes us into influencers. And I think this is the hottest like topic of them all, because everybody who pretty much, maybe not everybody, this is generalizing, but like everybody who's in like their teens to 20s, everybody wants to be an influencer because, you work with brands you love, you get free product, you work for yourself, like you don't have a boss, like it just sounds really desirable. And I totally get that. I think the biggest thing that's different from what we were just talking about is to be an influencer and actually like make money off of it as an influencer yourself. You need to have a big following, and it can take a really long time to build that up. And you deal with a lot of also like negative backlash from people. And, as you grow in popularity and stuff, like I think that's where people start to like really struggle with it. It can also be a really isolating job since you don't have a team all the time, especially when you're first starting out to work with. And, it's just you creating all of this content and planning the content. And, you're that graphic designer, the video editor, the copywriter, you're all of these things that we've talked about so far. And it's a really, really big task. So there's that side of it. And I think if you're somebody who's really intrigued by influencer industry, but you don't, have that kind of like entrepreneurial drive to build a following and do all of those things, I think something that's often overlooked is that influencer agencies are becoming a huge thing. And that's a really great way to also get in on the influencer industry without being an influencer yourself. And I feel like this kind of stems from PR versus marketing, but like influencer events, they're like, for instance, Revolve. If you guys follow influencers, which I'm assuming most of us do, you probably have seen like Revolve around the world trips, but there's actually a brand team for Revolve organizing those trips, reaching out to the influencers, giving them product, mailing it to them, building those relationships with the influencers. So I think this is a really great way to get in on the influencer industry on the other side of things as well. And again, it doesn't matter if you're on the other side. It doesn't matter what your following is. You could have a totally private Instagram account if you wanted, and still be in on it And I think that's just becoming more and more popular. A lot of influencers have also started working with agents and managers. So somebody who reaches out to brands for them. So I think that's also more on the influencer agency side of things. I guess what I was just going off about with the Revolve example would be more for like a corporate company or like a client versus like an influencer agency. But on the influencer agency side is where you start to see those manager positions or agent positions, and they might be the ones that are, coordinating on behalf of the influencer to the brand. So there's so many different ways to get into the influencer industry without having a million followers and, having that burden of like being a public figure, putting your whole life online, which I feel very uncomfortable with, which is what stopped me from becoming an influencer in the past. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I feel like with like every single thing we've just talked about, it can seem very daunting, but it's like a rare sort of industry where you can create your own sort of like portfolio for relatively free.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. Like, and like not a lot of places can do that. Like if you want to be like a welder, I guess you could just like start welding stuff in your backyard, but like no, you can't because you need to like do an apprenticeship and stuff. Whereas like if you are passionate about this and you're in high school, like you could just start working on it right now and get that like leg up. Or like, I do volunteer work where I get to touch on parts of marketing that I don't get to do in my 9 to 5. So then it's like, if I decide to make a career move, well, now I have like more experience in paid media, which I don't do a ton of at my 9 to 5. Or even like we started this podcast with, like we're not influencers. We don't have a following. No one cared what we had to say, but we created it because here we are, we're creating content in which like obviously this podcast is content, but then it's this content creation of everything we're posting on social media, on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. And we've done paid reach in the past. And now it's like, this is something we do for fun and for free, but our TikTok has 4 million views and over 500,000 likes. And that's something that we can now put on our resume, but we were just doing it like for fun, right? Like,
totally. I think that's what's so kind of magical about social media. And like, as much as I was pushing kind of, like it really helps to have the basics of marketing under your belt. The rest, like you can learn that on the job. You know what I mean? And I think social media is an like industry where you can learn pretty much all of these skills on the job and not need a whole bunch of experience to get into it. And I think you're totally right, Tag. If it's your own personal brand, if it's that you bake cookies and you want to sell them on, through Instagram, if it's like whatever small business you have in mind or like you want to try or whatever you're passionate about and you want to reach people, even if it's an Etsy shop, you might still have your own social media page to like promote your products and like reach people and stuff. So it is so easy. But it's not easy, but you can literally create this yourself.
It's accessible.
Yeah, exactly. That's more, getting that experience. You can really carve it out yourself, and make it what you want, exactly like you said.
Yeah. Well, and that I feel like is the fun of it too, is that obviously like I went to film school because I was like, I like films. That's not anything to do with marketing. But then it's like you learn more and more. Okay, well, I didn't really like being a director in film school. I liked being an editor. Okay, well, where does that lead me? Well, I didn't like editing long videos because I like to be changing, what I'm working on pretty quickly. So then that leads me, okay, well, then you have to be in like social media because they need lots of videos really quickly. And then that's led me, okay, well, I like that. But then I also really like the copywriting of it or whatever. Like you get to experiment, and it is, for the most part, low stakes. Like we've talked about this before. It's not, brain surgery. We're not saving lives here. You get to be creative and still, earn a living,
Totally.
which is also nice.
Yeah. 100%. I love this so much. I hope this gave you guys like, I'm imagining like a new grad listening to this that's like, I want to work in social media. I want to be an influencer. Or I don't want to be an influencer, but I want to do this. Like, how do I do this? So I hope this was like I know it was like a very broad overview. And like, if you have any questions, feel free to hit us up in our DMs, especially on Instagram. That's where we're most active. But we'd be happy to chat with you guys more about this. But I think that's all we wanted to kind of cover for you guys. Just like I said, give you that broad overview of all the different paths that you can go if social media is something that interests you for a career.
Yeah. And like, who knows? Maybe things will be changing and in a year there'll be like some other crazy thing that's, I don't know, some major part of our job, like how TikTok's just exploded. And,
exactly.
Yeah. Who knows? Yeah. We'll have to like do yearly updates or something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. We'll just keep pumping out work episodes on whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, on that note, as Sadie said, make sure you're subscribed and following us so that you see when our new episodes drop. They come out Tuesdays. And in between that, follow us on social and you can judge our marketing skills. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Pinterest, and Spotify. And we also have a Patreon page, which is the best way to show your support for the podcast. Also, give us a rating or some comments if you feel like it, because we always appreciate that. But that is everything for this week. Thanks for listening.
See you next Tuesday.